What is hammock camping? It's one of the best ways to camp. There's a lot of reasons why hammock camping is really great to be able to get out and experience the outdoors, and I think it's superior to tent camping. The reason being site selection. So if you're going to be in a tent, you're going to have to find a flat spot. It's going to have no rocks. Very often you're going to have to clear that area out. So if you're in a hammock, as long as you got trees, now I know there are some places without trees, but here on the East Coast, if I'm hiking, there's generally going to be some trees. A lot of people are familiar with camping in a tent, but I don't know if you ever slept on the ground. It's never comfortable. And I look around here and I see lots of places that I can camp. So I can get right by that stream, or I could get right by that great view. Also, I don't have to camp at established spots, which puts me further away from people and makes it so that I can go and disperse. And that's really important. When you're gonna go and you're not gonna make such an impact, it is really better for the environment. You can go and set up here and you can be over top of all these branches and briars and stuff. And if I take it down, no one's gonna know that I was here. Whereas if I have to set up a tent and I have to make a smooth spot, I gotta dig up rocks and roots and make sure it's all level, you're gonna know, and you can always tell where there's been a campsite. So, hammock camping, it really is. It's better for you, and it's also better for the environment. A lot of people have grown up and camping in a tent. It's actually a pretty popular way to go. But last 20 years, hammock camping has taken off. And there's a lot of positive reasons for it. Number one reason, you're gonna get more comfortable in a hammock. You don't have to sleep on the ground. I didn't like it when I was young, and I don't like it anymore now that when I'm old. When you look around here, you can't just put a tent any place around here. But why hammock camping is really great is all I need is a couple trees. Here on the East Coast, Midwest, Pacific Northwest, you're gonna have no problems finding trees that you can camp on. And I have pretty much unlimited amount of places that I can go. I wake up sore. I'm rolling all night, they're noisy. With a hammock, it is, I like it better than sleeping on my mattress at home. So, not only are you gonna be able to get a better night's sleep, but you're gonna be able to camp where you want to. You're not gonna have to go to some place that somebody may already be there. You might have to go and clear a new spot, which is gonna change the environment. Do you wanna hike through here and see the forest, or do you wanna hike through here and see where somebody has cleared a little place in the forest and made these flat areas? The benefit of knowing that I can hike till I'm done, I can go where I want to, and I can just stop and put up my hammock. In the morning, I take it down. It is an added level of freedom that you don't get when you have a tent. And the biggest problem you're gonna have is that you'll probably oversleep. I never wanna get out of my hammock. It's great on your back. There are people with back problems that sleep in a hammock full time. And it is way better than sleeping on the ground, sleeping on a pad. I think it's gonna be the best sleep that you're gonna get on the trail. It's gonna be much better than sleeping on a pad, that's for sure. So some other reasons why I think that hammock camping is gonna be far better than sleeping in a tent. Look, if you're on the ground, you have to deal with the creepy crawlies that are on the ground. And I know you're enclosed in that piece of nylon, but when you go and you pick that thing up in the morning, it's gonna be Often there's slugs, there's other things that have crawled, and it's just dirty, and you wind up with this wet mass of nylon that you have to somehow get into a stuff sack and get into your backpack. Whereas a hammock, with the key ingredients, and that is you need a hammock, you need a tarp, you need insulation, and very often you need a bug net. And if you have those 4 things, you are really going to be set up with first of all, you're going to be elevated off the ground. So that already eliminated a lot of the dirt and a lot of things that are going to crawl over you. But then when you put a tarp over you, not only are you going to stay dry, but there's going to be a large dry area all around you. When it's done right, not only are you going to have a nice dry space, because these new xenon and sil poly tarps, they are super light, which means that you can make a big space, very often 11 foot by 10 foot, that you have as a dry area, not only for your hammock, but also for cooking, or just camping and relaxing. Just picking up the tent in the morning and trying to put that thing away. I can't emphasize enough how much I dislike doing that. And what are you going to do? Are you going to let it dry? It's going to take you hours to go and you put it upside down. It's usually covered with leaf litter and things like that on the bottom of it, unless you have a ground cloth, and then you got to deal with the ground cloth, which is just the same thing. Hammock camping, when it's done right, it's really simple. I know it sounds like it's complex with some of the different components that are in with it, but when it really gets down to it, you really have a tarp and a hammock and insulation. It goes up super fast and it tears down super fast. So I would say these are a couple more of the reasons why hammock camping is so much better than tent camping. So this is the kind of thing I'm talking about. This is not a place where you could possibly put a tent. Everything's rocky, and there's going to be this fantastic view, and this is what makes it worth. Maybe we'll be blessed with some hawks flying around, but you get it to a view like this. Isn't this where you want to camp? You want to camp in some campground. You don't want to be in some established campsite. So I know it's a little bit daunting, but let me show you how easy it really is. I always like to keep it simple. So I got 2 trees here. I got a great view. So this is a great place to set up. This is my beetle buckle suspension. Super easy. It's got a Dutch clip on it, and I just go around the tree and I hook on it. It has an adjustable titanium beetle buckle. Do the same on the other tree. They're pretty far apart, which means I have to put them nice and high. I grab my hammock. One key thing on the hammock is I like to color coordinate everything that's on them. So I have a red loop. Red's for head, so I know I want my head on this end. Just like that, you set up the hammock. I'm gonna test it out. This is the kind of height that I like to have. I want to be able to sit here and cook and relax and look at the great view I got. After that, we need a tarp. Again, pro tip, there's a lot of strings on the tarp. I make the ridgeline a specific color, and that way, when this thing is just a ball of polyester, I know to grab the green line, because the green line is my tarp suspension. This is a xenon bonded tarp. What's really nice about this tarp is it's not sewn, so you don't have the perforation. I know my tarp is about 8 inches longer than my hammock. So that's how I knew where to tie this off. Come over to the other tree. I always hang my tarp as high as the weather will allow. So if this was like winter and rainy and cold, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna pitch it down closer. It's a beautiful day today, so it's only there just in case. I'm actually gonna pitch it back, and I'm not gonna pitch it front unless the weather starts to rain. But I do like to set it up just in case. So put this behind here. Just like that, I got 2 of the main components. If you're just getting into this, there's such a thing as an underquilt, but they didn't exist not too long ago. And actually, when I first started getting into it, I through hiked with a pad, pretty much one of these folding pads just like this. And if this is your first time, you don't have to invest in the underquilt. And then if you decide this is something you want to do, you can change out each piece as you go. So the pad is going to be insulation between you and the outside, and it's going to keep you warm, and it really is important. There are people that go out there and they don't think that's important. They think because they're in a sleeping bag they're going to be okay, but they're not. The cold is going to come up through. They compress their insulation. It's been said many times, but can't iterate enough. You need bottom insulation. It's probably more important than top insulation. If this is a hobby that you really think you're going to get into, then I suggest you get a quilt. But there's a very good chance that if you've been camping, you have a sleeping bag. And with a sleeping bag, all you have to do is unzip it, and you lay down and you wear it like a quilt. And you'll be totally fine doing that. This one is way too warm for today. I'll vent it and I'll be absolutely okay. If you want to, you can certainly get hammocks with bug nets on them. You can also get a bottom entry bug net, which actually goes around the hammock, and you can just crawl up inside of it. You can see how fast I was able to set this up. Because the hammock has a ridge line, I know that if I sit in this hammock and I feel the ridge line and it is tight but I can bend it, that this hammock is not strung too tight. If I lay in this hammock and I get a little bit of a sag, that means that I need to pull the hammock tighter. Maybe I lower down the straps on the trees. This is pretty good. It's actually a little bit tight, but it would do. I like the ridge line. It makes it so that I have the perfect distance and the perfect smiley face here every time. But also, if I put a bug net on here, it's gonna hold the bug net up. And also, if I read a book, I put my headlamp, I can hang things on here. But this is not the kind of place where you can have a tent. So this is what it's all about. You got a great view, it's a beautiful day. I'm out here, I'm either alone, sometimes I'll bring some good friends with me. I'm not having to be forced to be in some campsite. I'm able to set up wherever I want. If a hammock gets hung in the forest and no one sees it, did it really get hung? So when I'm done here, nobody's gonna know that I was here. I'm gonna be able to totally clean up, and this, it's gonna give a less impact on the environment, which is really important, because I don't really come out here to see where other people have camped and the damage that they have done. I really want to see it be pristine, much like that. So whenever you're getting into something like this, keep it simple. All right, start with what you already have. If you have a pad, then you have bottom insulation. If you have a tarp, a lot of people have tarps. Start with that. Get a hammock. Now, there are lounging hammocks and there's camping hammocks. And a good rule of thumb is that your camping hammock is going to be 5 feet longer than you. So if you are 6 foot tall, an 11-foot hammock really works well for that. It makes it so that you can lay on the diagonal. You can get a really flat lay. Unfortunately, there's hammocks out there. They look good on Amazon, but you check the length of them and they are short. They are 9 foot, sometimes even less. And well, I'm not gonna fit into a 9-foot hammock, that's for sure. Get out there. If it's something that you like, then you go and you swap out the components. Start with a pad and then move to an underquilt. Then maybe you swap out the sleeping bag to a nice quilt. After a while, you're gonna have a really great setup. Once you get that set up, the adventures are boundless. You can do whatever you want. You can go where you want, as long as, of course, you're gonna need trees if you're gonna be in a hammock. Well, that's usually true, but sometimes you can even set up a stand. But what's really important is just get out there and start adventuring. Thank you, everybody.